Coming up on The Disturbance, LeBron James wants an NBA franchise. And get this, he wants it in Vegas. And there is so much right with that on so many levels. We'll get into that, but it does open up a whole new can of worms because that means the NBA is either moving a team from an existing city or is forced to have two NBA expansion franchises. I've got a city that is hot, very hot in mind that would work really well for the National Basketball Association. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And I will also give you a quick preview of the Golden State Warriors at home against the Boston Celtics as game number 5 of your NBA Finals is right around the corner. I've got all of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today.
Live and on tape from the heart of Silicon Valley, this is The Disturbance, hosted by Dave Daba. Now to the host, who can't stop ripping on players, coaches, and unbelievably bad front office management, Dave Daba.
It is super late night on Sunday, June 12th of the year 2022. I'm Dave Daba, and thanks so much for tuning into The Disturbance today. All right, as we mentioned on our last podcast, we have come a long way on The Disturbance. The big show is now on Spotify, and you can check out this mug because there is video on Spotify if you have the app. So if you will, we are simulcasting on both podcast form and on video as well. So make sure you check that out. Coming up, we're going to talk about LeBron James and Las Vegas and a potential second NBA franchise in a super hot city here in North America. We'll get into that, but first, a quick National Basketball Association NBA Game 5 preview for you. Now, we all saw Steph erupt in game number 4. You could say it erupted in game number 3 as well. Anyways, he went ahead and erupted. And so we've seen some great things happen in the NBA in the finals to this point. We are all knotted at 2. Game 5 is on Monday night. You can, if you're on the East Coast, it would be very easy to pick the Boston Celtics to come in. This is a very well-run Boston Celtic team from the top to the bottom. I am just saying this particular basketball team has a lot of skills, and it is very well coached at this point. They're going to make some adjustments. Don't think that the Golden State Warriors walked away with a ton of momentum, even though they actually won that game. This series has not in any way been about momentum. It has been about coaching, and it has been about coaching adjustments, minus the fact that Steph Curry put the entire Golden State Warrior team on his shoulders. Look, if the Warriors are going to win Game 5, the real Draymond Green is going to have to show up. And if the real Draymond Green doesn't show up, a fast hook on Draymond Green is called for by Steve Kerr. And I think at this point, you could expect to see the young Kuminga get some real minutes in this game because Andre Iguodala is already playing golf in retirement, if you know what I mean. All right. So I think the Warriors are going to find a way to win. I think Draymond's going to play way better, and I expect Kuminga to get a couple minutes in game number 5. That being said, let's move on to our feature story, if you will, of the day. And a little earlier in the week, LeBron James, who has been, as we all know, one of the best National Basketball Association players in the last 20 years in the NBA. He's had a phenomenal run as a player. He's had an even more impressive run off the court with all of his philanthropy that he does, and an even more impressive run as it relates to his businesses that he's involved in. LeBron James is part of the Fenway Group, which means he owns a small piece of the Boston Red Sox. So if you ever see LeBron with a B on his hat, you now know why. That being said, he has cleared $1 billion in personal value to this point and has told the NBA and the NBA commissioner and a bunch of other people in and outside of the NBA that when his playing days are done, he wants to own an NBA franchise, and he wants that franchise to be in Vegas. I cannot tell you how right LeBron James is about getting an NBA franchise in Las Vegas. It is a perfect place for a National Basketball Association franchise. We have seen how successful the Golden Knights of the National Hockey League have been in Las Vegas. We have seen how accepting the Las Vegas fans have been to the newly formed, moved the nomads of the National Football League, if you will, the Raiders, as they've moved to Las Vegas and have found a new home in an absolutely fantastic looking stadium. Look, Vegas is a perfect place for a wide variety of reasons. Plus, USA Basketball already practices there. There is the Summer League that is there, the NBA Summer League, and all of those AA tournaments that you hear about are all in Vegas anyways. It is a perfect spot for a wide variety of reasons. Now, look, the Vegas population is not as big as you think it is. It is about 660,000 after the last census. And I started to think about, okay, like if LeBron James does get a franchise, is he either moving an existing franchise to Las Vegas, like the Sacramento Kings? And the answer is probably he's looking for an expansion franchise. The NBA would then be forced to think about offering 2 expansion franchises to keep things even, if you will. So if that were to happen, I started to think about, because like the whole Vegas thing is just an absolute no-brainer. We see how successful even the WNBA is in Las Vegas as well. I think it certainly will be a very successful thing. I do want to point this out, that the Minnesota Timberwolves sold for $1.5 billion about a year and a half ago. The Portland Trailblazers are allegedly about to be sold for around $2 billion. I'm not sure what the cost of an expansion franchise is going to be, but LeBron James is going to have to get some other investors involved to pull off a franchise. He's not going to throw all of his money just into this thing. So there will be other investors, and I'm sure LeBron James has enough rich friends to pull that off. Which takes me to this next statement. Like if you're the NBA and you're looking at the map of North America, and you're like, God, what would be another really good city that the NBA would be really successful in? Should we go back to the land of the Kraken, which is Seattle? Should we put a team back where the Supersonics used to play? And of course, it's a natural, easy thing for the NBA to do, to say, hey, look, let's get a team in Seattle. But if they were looking to be a little bit more original than Seattle, or going back to Vancouver, which, by the way, the team was extremely successful in Vancouver, it just had bad ownership. They were forced to move out of Vancouver because of, once again, bad ownership. Bad ownership nearly did that team in, and the correct move was to get them out of that city and back into the United States, into Memphis. But the one city in the United States that is flat out just growing and really doesn't have any kind of real, MLS, real pro team in it today is Austin, Texas. Did you know that Austin, Texas is now one of the 10th largest cities in the United States? There's well over 1 million people that live in Austin, Texas proper. We're not even getting into the suburbs of Austin, Texas. Look, Austin, Texas has become bigger than San Antonio at this point. I am just saying that the Austin, Texas metropolitan area, and hell, I don't even know if they call it that, is certainly capable of getting 16 to 18,000 people into an NBA arena 40 plus times a year. Look, the NBA would be very successful in Austin, Texas. It is a progressive city in the heart of Texas. It is where the University of Texas is. There's a ton of fun things going on in Texas, from South by Southwest to other industry trade shows. It is very, very progressive in Austin, Texas. The NBA would do extremely well in Texas. So the question is, who would own a team in Texas? Well, look, there's plenty of billionaires in the Austin, Texas metropolitan area to make a bid for an NBA franchise. And when I look at all of the other cities that might say, well, what about New Mexico? What about Little Rock? What about some of these other cities? Maybe St. Louis. Look, we saw what happened with the St. Louis Rams. Like, do you even remember when the St. Louis Rams were in St. Louis? And that was just literally less than 4 years ago. Look, they made so much more money in LA than they did in St. Louis. It's not even funny. And the reason they did is the economy was not booming. Now, if there wasn't an NBA franchise today in Miami, I would say Miami's the ideal place to put an NBA franchise, because the economy is booming. Politically, you might disagree with a lot of the things that Florida Governor DeSantis does. But what he has done is he has made the state of Florida very appealing to tech companies, which is why if you're in your 20s and you have the opportunity to go to Miami to work for a tech company, it's an absolute no-brainer. If you're in your 20s and you have the opportunity to go to work for a tech company in Austin, Texas, it's an absolute no-brainer as well. I'm just saying Austin, Texas is a great second franchise if the NBA moves into the expansion era in the next 5 years. All right, there you go. Hey, thanks so much for tuning into The Disturbance. Hopefully some thought-provoking sports talk for you there. And I can't wait for Game 5 of the NBA Finals just around the corner. And it will be very interesting to see, who else, if LeBron James goes to Hollywood and puts together a Hollywood group, if you will, to help with the expansion franchise fee, which I'm sure will be huge. And then there's the whole operations and the whole arena and all of those things that would go into it. So this isn't going to happen overnight, but I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 years if the NBA announced 2 expansion franchises, one in Austin, one going to LeBron James and his Hollywood group in Las Vegas. All right, North America, thanks so much for tuning into The Disturbance today. Do check out our big sports website at disturbance.live when you have a chance. For The Disturbance, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
The Disturbance is a production of the Mighty Rip Podcast Network. For more witty, 100% independent sports coverage, check out our big website at mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.